Good morning. For anyone who was not in attendance for the hearing on February 5th, my name is Patrick Fryer. I am a staff attorney here at Pure, and I'm assigned to this docket as a legal advisor, and I am also serving as a hearing officer in this proceeding. Today is the continuation of the February 5th evidentiary hearing and is also the late filed exhibits hearing concerning docket number 24-1106. Before we begin, I would just like to remind the panel that they're still under oath pursuant to the swearing in that occurred on February 5th, 2025. Just administratively from my point, just want to point out that I plan on a 30-minute lunch break anywhere between 12 and 1, whatever works out for the parties in their questioning. And with that, I will turn it over to if anyone else has any administrative matters they'd like to address at this time. I can hear you.
So we just had three quick administrative matters and they relate to motions. The first one is motion number 19 that sought confidential protection for OCC. Confidential protection for those two. OCC objected to Verizon in response to that filed a supplemental response that we're asking that Pure decide the motion with respect.
Just for clarification on that, does OCC maintain its objection? Right. I'm just wondering if it still maintains its objection with the supplemental filing of 228.
The OCC accepts the filing
Okay.
as supplemented.
I would ask that party to either return or just confidential version.
Okay. A motion ruling will be sent out shortly on that. But you cleared up the questions that I had with respect to that.
Yes. Other motion is right. Confidential protection for response to that motion. I just wanted to inform.
Okay. Okay.
Final motion is for here, motion number 21, which sought protection for LFE. Frontier will be filing that on public record.
So would you be with?
We would unredact the confidential. Make it public record.
Okay. Okay. So you're complying with them. Okay. No problem. Any other administrative matters?
Thank you. Attorney John Wright from the Attorney General's office is out today. So Attorney Cohen from the OCC will be asking the questions that John Wright would have asked.
Okay, thank you.
And then finally, Attorney Fryer, Burt Cohen on behalf of the Office of Consumer Counsel. There is also outstanding motion number 22 from Eversource, which is
Yes.
We do not intend to ask any questions directly related to that
Okay.
document today.
Okay, so a ruling on motion 19 and motion 22 will be out shortly. Okay.
And then hopefully we can keep them from flying in on a regular basis.
So, all right, so I guess that would conclude any administrative matters for the moment. At this time, do we have any members of the public who would like to submit any public comment? If you want to come up, please state your name and address for the record. and then you can provide your public comment.
Good morning. My name is Pua Ford. I live in Bethany, Connecticut. I have filed correspondence from the Connecticut Alliance for Community Media. I am no longer running any government channel. I retired from Woodbridge Government Channel. I still produce a public program by way of Comcast Seymour, and I don't believe that they are interconnected with Frontier. In any case, I would like to direct your attention to the letter that we filed as correspondence from Susan Huizenga in Wallingford. I think that's an important detail. Thoughts I had after I filed everything were the fiber network is a wonderful thing, but it's a new network, and I wonder if it deserves revisiting the 2009 interconnection agreements that everybody had with AT&T's UVerse. Also, as a consumer, I wanted to mention my husband has been gradually moving us off cable onto streaming apps. I have resisted because there is no provision for us to help support community access programming, which I'm providing and would like to be able to see on television. Meanwhile, our daughter in our 30s lives in Brooklyn and is a subscriber to Verizon Fios and gets the TV product there. Or at least I found that out because she likes to get her local channels more easily, including SNY. So when she and her father are watching Mets games together, she now gets the plays about 30 seconds before he does on the streaming app. Minor thing, but I think it is important to continue a television product in whatever service we get going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, just come on up and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jennifer Evans. I live at 1 Park Road, number 234 in West Hartford, Connecticut. I am the executive director of West Hartford Community Interactive. And I just wanted to highlight a few things in the submission that CTACM submitted earlier. I was present at the time that the original agreements came about, and AT&T agreed to initially, in lieu of codifying in legislation, the original allowing for the initial interconnect. And that's what the beginning of these agreements came from. So as we have a new provider, it just seems, and sort of a new fiber structure, it seems like now would be the time to, again, revisit these agreements and look at the fact that for many of us, we did not have consistent delivery of community access programming in a way that people could access it going all the way back to AT&T's menu solution. And I just also wanted to say we are grateful to Frontier for getting us off the menu. But the way that Frontier delivered us as full channels is something that we greatly admire. And I think in the end, the current situation is because the leased back, the network that AT&T leased back just couldn't sustain or never could sustain public access programming. And, I remember a time when we ran an autism panel, and we trashed the entire network with the number of people that were trying to view it. And I really feel passionately about the fact that people should be able to see their local government and their programming in a way that is easily accessible. And we just hold out so much hope that we can work together to, find a way to deliver the important programming that we offer um, in a way that people can actually view it and be part of that media ecospace. And that's, I think the least that we should receive, considering that we did compromise in 2008 by not allowing a law to go forward that would have required all providers to pay for the full interconnect, which was the state of things at the time of the franchise agreement. So, we have very few mechanisms right now, and we are, all struggling we raise 56% of our budget now due to the lack of subscribers. And I think there are the same number of subscribers. They're just being offered television in a different way. And the original vision of PA 07256 was to keep our numbers flat so that we would always have the same level of funding we had prior to the franchising process. And I just ask everyone to kind of keep in mind that we have made concessions over the last, 10, 15 years, only to see our base level of funding drop, in my case, by over $76,000. And I think it's time that we think about what the community deserves in exchange for using the public right of way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joni Wedler. I'm the Executive Director of Nutmeg TV in Farmington, and I certainly echo Jen's comments there in support of public access television. Nutmeg TV is the largest nonprofit, regional, peer-appointed community access provider, or CAP, proudly serving over 234 residents across 8 cities and towns in Central Connecticut. We manage a public education and government access PEG facility. We deliver hyperlocal community programming to Comcast and Frontier customers. Currently, Nutmeg TV is one of only 2 PEG stations in Connecticut with active Frontier channels distributing content. For more information about our services and facilities, I invite you to visit our website at nutmegtv.com. Nutmeg TV was among the first to interconnect with AT&T U-verse, who was statutorily responsible for the initial interconnection with CAPS. They used digital rapids encoders and a T1 line to deliver programming from Nutmeg TV to customers of AT&T. Fast forward 10 years, and the end-of-life encoders began to fail. By this time, Frontier had acquired AT&T U-verse's business, and Frontier's Network Operations Center, or NOC, in Everett, Washington, reported signal outages at our station. Head-end engineers identified ongoing issues with the T1 lines, which were causing service disruptions. Even brief interruptions could cause the encoders to fail, channel loss to occur, and customers calling with complaints. With failing encoders and the need to stay in compliance, our obligations to deliver programming to Frontier customers, Nutmeg TV assumed the responsibility of purchasing replacement encoders and sought Frontier's recommendation. Frontier suggested Drake encoders, which Nutmeg TV purchased for over $7,000. However, upon installation and connection to Frontier systems, it became evident that the Drake encoders were incompatible with Frontier's T1 lines. Unfortunately, they could not be returned, and we had no choice but to continue using failing encoders. Nutmeg TV continued to face frequent outages and viewer complaints. And additionally, with Windows XP as the operating system, a platform no longer supported by Microsoft, the station was exposed to viruses, malware, and cyber attacks. This vulnerability culminated in a severe cyber attack, so significant that Nutmeg TV and Frontier were contacted by the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations. The attack, which involved the U.S. government, resulted in substantial costs for Nutmeg TV, including attorney's fees and IT resources required to clean outdated systems and maintain on-air services for Frontier customers. Due to the nature of the attack and the FBI involvement, Nutmeg TV is bound by non-disclosure agreements and cannot provide further details. Due to Frontier's failure to upgrade Nutmeg TV's distribution to current standards for viewers, most of you have TVs that are rectangular, 4:3. Frontier provided a 1:1 aspect ratio, or the old square, forcing our signal to be downgraded for viewers. Frequent failures of T1 further complicated the viewer experience, and our service calls to Frontier yielded inconsistent results. Frontier offered no feed return unless Nutmeg TV purchased its cable Vantage box, requiring a 1 to 3 year installation agreement and a $20 monthly fee. Consequently, signal issues persisted and customer complaints became a daily occurrence. When pressed for alternative encoder recommendations, Frontier suggested the Niagara 6500 series. Thankfully, Nutmeg TV did not proceed with the purchase, as a Frontier engineer later confidentially revealed that the company was phasing out the Windows Media Video 9 format and the PEG app. The suggested encoders would have been incompatible with the PEG app and were soon to be decommissioned nationwide. With no new encoders, inconsistent recommendations from Frontier, and a statutory obligation to maintain service or risk losing funding, Nutmeg TV sought another compatible encoder for the outdated T1 lines. After consulting again with Frontier engineers well-versed in the PEG delivery platform, Nutmeg TV purchased the Niagara model 9603012 for $15,000. Which was installed on April 14th, 2021. Unfortunately, within 2 weeks, the system was compromised by Lockbit ransomware. Nutmeg TV contacted Niagara immediately, only to be told, quote, "This happens more than you think." Niagara instructed us to shut down the systems, unplug them, and wait for re-imaged hard drives. By May 10th, 2021, the re-imaged hard drives had not arrived. Frontier, when informed of the issue, dismissed it as a matter between Nutmeg TV and Niagara, despite the recommendation originating from Frontier and the relationship Frontier and Niagara enjoy. The ransomware attack also compromised 3 other routers handling Frontier traffic, requiring replacements at a cost of $10,000. Ultimately, Nutmeg TV faced substantial costs. $7,000 on incompatible Drake recommended encoders, $15,000 on Niagara encoders that resulted in a ransomware attack, $10,000 for compromised Cisco routers, and no functional encoders or re-imaged hard drives. After demanding a return of the Niagara encoders, the warranty did not cover malware incidents. Niagara eventually agreed to return, but imposed a $2,000 restocking fee after a contentious meeting and threat of legal action. Nutmeg TV still had no working encoders. Then Frontier announced it was decommissioning all remaining T1 lines. Nutmeg TV was faced with a critical decision: transition to fiber to retain programming for Frontier customers, or discontinue service and risk losing all financial support from Frontier. Nutmeg TV questioned Frontier on whether business internet and PEG fiber could coexist as separate services on the same fiber, one providing 900 down, 900 up megabytes for PEG channels, and another offering 100 down, 100 up for daily business operations. As a PEG facility, we use cloud-based services and systems, including our own live stream apps and daily YouTube uploads, VPN and VoIP services requiring greater upload speeds. Frontier advised that this required a router costing $6,500 to handle 3 channels, extended service agreements, and 8 hours of network configuration and deployment services. As there was no fiber on the street, Nutmeg TV entered discussions with Frontier about a fiber line, the installation of this fiber down Eastview Drive the cul-de-sac where Nutmeg TV owns a building. Nutmeg TV was compelled to pay for the fiber installation over a 5-year loan period, which continues to this day. The final setup includes 2 fiber configured into a single 1 gig fiber package. Nutmeg pays for the 100 down, 100 up portion of the line for business internet, while Frontier manages the remaining 900 for PEG channels. The setup routes the single fiber through Frontier's modem into a network rack where it's split into 2 fibers, one connecting the PEG encoders and the other connecting Nutmeg TV's firewall for business internet. To interconnect with Frontier, Nutmeg TV has spent over $63,000. Add to that $63,938 lost in Frontier fiber funding, not fiber, lost in Frontier funding due to poor performance, changes in customer choice, and Frontier no longer selling the Vantage TV product. Nutmeg TV has a Frontier deficit of over $126,000. In closing, Nutmeg TV reminds Pura that CVFA holders' interconnection responsibilities by statute are as follows: shall provide the transmission of community access programming with connectivity up to the first 200 feet from the competitive video service provider's activated wireline video programming distribution facility. That didn't happen for Nutmeg TV. Instead, we went out of our way to interconnect with Frontier so we wouldn't lose funding, and we're still paying on that loan. In multiple discussions with the director of sales and Frontier's retention and loyalty agent, in attempts to renegotiate the terms of the loan, we've had no luck. Eastview Drive is an industrial park full of businesses who can be marketed and sold fiber from Frontier on a line that Nutmeg TV is still paying for, and that fiber line to be sold or used by others will remain, even if we don't. I would request on behalf of Nutmeg TV and its board of directors that the applicants, Verizon and Frontier, review our situation and come up with a plan to provide meaningful relief to Nutmeg TV. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your attention.
Attorney Fryer, it appears that Ms. Wedler was reading of that document. If it's okay with you and okay with her, can we get that entered into the record as correspondence?
That's fine by me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you'll have to file it, Ms. Wedler.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Cohen. Before we move on to the way I envision this going is that we'd move on to the remaining cross examination at this time. But before we do that, I understand that you're missing one witness, and I don't know if you want to address that at all with respect to that pre-filed testimony of that witness.
And, Mr. Bass.
So Mr. Vasington will be adopting the pre-filed testimony of, I'm sorry, I forgot the witness. Okay.
Like also like colleagues right now. At least
That'll work. That's a good idea. Yes.
Good morning.
They're involved preparing, doing and sponsoring certain responses on behalf of Verizon, late filing exhibit request.
Yes,
Responses prepared under your direct supervision and control.
yes,
Do you have any corrections or modifications you'd like to make to those responses?
no,
You adopt those responses as part of your sworn testimony in this docket.
yes.
Hey, Mr. Bassington,
Morning.
have you prepared or been involved with preparing and doing sponsoring responses on behalf of Verizon's late filing exhibit request?
Yes,
Responses prepared under direct supervision and control.
yes, they were.
Corrections or
No.
Specifically, they filed exhibit 16. Like to clarify the
Well-
record that was made in that.
Yes, my apologies. I thought we were going to do that as a separate correction. In late filed Exhibit 16, we provided a correction to testimony that I mistakenly gave a question from Mr. Cohen at the last hearing. The mistake was reflected at transcript page 142, lines 3 to 10, where I mistakenly testified that our broadband labels are accessible directly on a public website without entering address information. And my mistake was that I had accessed that information through a browser to an internal Verizon site. We use a browser to access both external and internal information. So I was incorrect on that, and we've corrected that in the response to LFE 16, and I apologize to the Consumer Council and other parties for that mistake.
Thank you. Apology accepted. And mistakes happen. Thank you for coming forward.
Mr. Verizon, did you adopt the responses as part of your sworn testimony today?
Yes, I do.
According to Ellis,
Morning.
have you prepared or been involved in preparing and reviewing responses on behalf of Frontier Lake Valley for the request issued in this topic?
If I could just interrupt just for a minute, I'm sorry to cut you off. Attorney Jensen, could you make sure your microphone is on? Yeah. Thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting.
Ms. Ellis, is that better? Can you hear me with this now? Yeah. Ms. Ellis, were the responses prepared under your direct supervision and control?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections you would like to make to those responses?
No,
Do you adopt the responses as part of your sworn testimony today?
I do.
The witnesses are available for cross-examination.
Thank you, Attorney Jensen.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Ellis, Mr. Vasington, Mr. Sullivan. Nice to see you again. I'm going to start with, I do want to go back to some of the testimony or public comments that you heard before. But first, I want to talk a little bit about something that's related to LFE 1, which was basically about the reason for Frontier Communications parent remaining as part of the Verizon family post-transaction. I don't know, this isn't a specific Frontier or Verizon question, so I'll take answer from anybody at this point. My recollection is that Verizon was acquiring Frontier Communications parent for $20 billion or $38.50 per share of Frontier. And my notes have 10 billions of assumed debt. Does that sound about right?
Yes, it's roughly $20 billion. You hold on for 1 second.
It's okay, Mr. Vasington, because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I tell people never trust an attorney's math except on the bills. But so that's roughly in the ballpark. I'm not really testing you on that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, and at the time the deal was announced in early September of last year, the price of the deal represented or reflected some sort of a premium. Does that sound familiar to you? Premium to the Frontier shareholders?
Yes, it was a premium to the agreed to equity price was a premium above what Frontier had been trading at prior to the announcement of the deal.
And I don't know if your recollection was, but my notes have that the premium was roughly or almost 44% of the Frontier share price. Does that sound?
I honestly don't know. If you've looked at it, I don't remember an exact percentage figure or even a rough percentage figure.
Okay. Um, So the reason for my questions is as consumer advocates, the OCC is concerned that Connecticut consumers may experience communication services price increases from this transaction, particularly given that Connecticut is not an insignificant piece of the transaction, as Verizon will be acquiring the company that has wireline capability to serve the entire state of Connecticut, and will have an ownership interest in virtually all the utility poles. So that's the reason I'm asking that. So for the record, can someone assure that Connecticut consumers of Frontier that will become customers of Verizon over the next year or so are not subsidizing this transaction any more than anyone else would in the Verizon ecosystem, particularly with respect to the premium that I mentioned in the previous question?
Well, the benefits of the transaction for customers are really derived from all of the additional opportunities that are being obtained by Verizon, particularly with respect to Frontier's current fiber footprint and the potential to add more fiber to the business. Those benefits of expansion of facilities and opportunities to try to convince customers to buy more services are not, in a sense, a subsidy of paying for the transaction. It's incumbent upon us to convince customers that Verizon would be the best option, and the Verizon ownership of the Frontier companies, that we would be in a position to convince those customers to either stay with us or come to us. So that's more on us to meet our objectives in terms of making this a good transaction for Verizon as well as a good transaction for the customers.
Thank you for that, Mr. Vasington. I think when in my experience, when the DPUC and now Pura, when they evaluate these, they want to make these transactions, they want to make sure that the Connecticut customers, ratepayers, are not going to suddenly find their rates increasing. So I'll try to put it another way, more simply, and that is that the rack rates that Verizon or Frontier charge are not going to be raised to pay off the premium of the price upon the closing of the transaction.
We're doing a lot of due diligence in the transaction integration process right now, evaluating all the prices and rates to see if they're the best way to approach the market. Certainly is not the consideration that we need to make those decisions based on a desire to pay for the transaction. This isn't like an old rate case deals. We operate in a very competitive market, so our decisions will be based on our best efforts at winning in the marketplace, not trying to generate a revenue to pay for the premium.
Okay, thank you. Kind of related to this point, I just want to get an update, or maybe we didn't get an explanation during the last proceeding. With some specificity, the actual road that, the actual road that the entity Frontier Communications parent will have in overseeing Verizon's networks in Connecticut post-closing.
I'm sorry.
I'll repeat that. I'll repeat that because I stumbled at the beginning. Can you explain with some specificity the actual role that the entity Frontier Communications parent will have in overseeing Verizon's networks in Connecticut post-closing?
The existing network of Verizon New York in Greenwich is under the indirect control of Verizon Communications, Inc. today. That will not change. It will not, Verizon New York will not fold under the Frontier parent in Connecticut. Frontier parent in Connecticut will fall under the control of the existing Verizon holding company in Connecticut, Verizon Communications, Inc. So that is a clear line of control that Verizon will be in control. In terms of the specifics of who those people will be and exactly how our oversight will be implemented is subject to what's happening right now with the transition process.
Okay, it's still not crystal clear, but maybe.
And I do have the exact figures, by the way, earlier that I was just
Okay.
estimating. The transaction as of a few months ago was valued at $21.6 billion, $9.8 billion in equity, and $11.8 billion target debt.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vasington, for that clarification. I just wanted to say it's still, I think, beneficial not just to the OCC, but to Pura to be able to fully understand the role, the actual role that Frontier Communications parent will play in overseeing the operations of the SNET network post-closing. So if you want to think about that at a break and then maybe revisit that, that might be worthwhile. It's up to, obviously, to the applicants. And in the same vein, I just want to check on a few updates since the last hearing. Is the person who will be responsible for overseeing the Connecticut operations after this close been identified or selected?
No, it hasn't.
Okay. When that person is identified or selected, will this person be assigned to work within the geographical boundaries or borders of Connecticut, or will that person be working out of New York, Rhode Island, or Massachusetts office?
And maybe I'll take this one, Paul. We're just starting the integration planning process. We haven't made a decision yet. And when we do, we'll let you know. But as of right now, we're literally in the prepare stage of the integration planning process.
Okay, you may want to think about that because it may very well be that in the final decision of the agency, of the authority, that you'll be told what to do. So you might want to consider that. I want to talk a little bit about utility poles.
Okay.
Which is a big, it's a big issue here in Connecticut. I'm going to kind of put aside some of my questions here, but I just want to get a few questions in the answers in the record. Is Verizon aware that SNET, as the pole custodian, inspects, maintains, replaces jointly owned poles throughout the state pursuant to agreements with CL&P and the United Illuminating Company?
Yes.
Okay. The EDCs, the electric distributions companies, CL&P and UI, or Eversource and Avangrid, whatever, their owners, they coordinate with SNET to handle third-party pole attachment applications. They set new jointly owned poles throughout the state, remove old poles, and shift facilities in certain circumstances. Does Verizon understand those roles?
Yes.
Okay. The EDCs and the electric distribution companies and SNET coordinate in pole replacements following storms, motor vehicle accidents, and other emergencies. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
DPUC. Coffee. UC and Pura decisions require the EDCs and SNET to coordinate with one another to perform pole attachment, make ready work, set new jointly owned pole, and remove poles within Pura's mandated timeframes. Is that your understanding, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In the last hearing, I believe I asked about developing a plan. And with those responsibilities, it is understandable that we need to know that SNET will have the level of resources to perform these pole custodian obligations under Verizon's ownership as the parent company, which is why we asked to develop that plan. Do you have anything further you would like to add to the record, Mr. Sullivan, to help us understand how you're coming at this?
Sure. When the deal's closed, we will do a review of the property here in Connecticut. And, we'd be very happy to share with you our plan after a year. We need to come in, look over the look over the property and look over the plant. And we'd be happy to sit down with you, after a year to show you what our plan is.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Rihanna Ash for the Office of Consumer Counsel. We're going to switch gears a little bit to network integration. Verizon, this first one's for you. Verizon, what would a full integration of Frontier and Verizon's physical networks look like?
Brianna, as I stated on an earlier question, is that we're just at the prepare stage of the integration planning process. And, we'll do our due diligence to look at both systems, process, network, as well as the field and operations support.
I can appreciate that the details haven't been ironed out yet, but at a high level, if one phone company, Verizon, is acquiring another, what would be the common elements that would need to be considered when the networks are being integrated?
And we would have our IT folks look at the systems, look at Frontier systems, look at, the Verizon systems, and, look to see what can be integrated, which ones would integrate together, which ones we would run separately, and make those decisions, when we do our due diligence.
What are the benefits of full integration?
That's a tough question because it's unlimited, right? It gets into that, you want to look to see where the synergies that make sense so that, we can look to run a very efficient operation.
And what are the benefits of maintaining separate networks, if any?
Again, we're at the beginning stage.
Can you tell us what a billing system integration would look like?
I would say right now, we literally, I just put my team together and I wouldn't be able to tell you right now.
Can you tell me at a general level, if the billing system was being integrated with something existing, if Frontier's billing system was being rolled into IT platform that Verizon uses, can you provide us with assurances that any Connecticut-specific consumer protections that are coded into the current Frontier system would be mirrored in the new system, or we would be able to be sure that compliance mechanisms wouldn't be broken when the platform was migrated?
Yes, that we would apply, but we would definitely make sure that we live up to the law and the rules that have been agreed upon.
Thank you. At the last hearing, Frontier's witness testified at page 36 of the transcript that from Frontier's perspective, the 2014 transition involved a new technology transition for Frontier, and this transaction doesn't involve the same technology transition. Frontier, can you explain why the 2014 technology transition was a concern?
I guess I'm confused by your question in terms of what do you mean by was a concern?
From the testimony, it was apparent that there were technological issues when completing the transition and any network integration. It sounded like they were unexpected. So can you tell us a little bit about that situation, why it was problematic, and perhaps what Frontier learned from it?
What I would say is at a high level, we were taking over a network that had technologies in use that we did not have as much familiarity with as the network across our other 24 states. Well, at that time, it wasn't 24 states, it was fewer than 20 states, I believe, at the time. So taking on the UVerse network, that was a new network for us. It was a new technology base. So there were some there was a learning curve associated with integrating that technology into our existing network.
The UVerse system is still intact in some places and delivering service. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm not sure it goes under the UVerse brand name anymore, but the core system is, yes.
Can you give us a high-level explanation of the type of technology that UVerse system uses that's still in place? The components of the network or fiber, coaxial?
Yeah, I'm not a network engineer. I'm not a network expert. My understanding is that it is a blend of fiber and copper technology.
Verizon, do you have experience with a blend of fiber and copper technology?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us where that technology currently exists in Verizon's footprint?
From Massachusetts down to Virginia. Yes.
And would you say it's similar technology to the UVerse technology?
The UVerse would be totally different. We don't have any UVerse type of technology in our systems right now.
What makes the UVerse technology different than that fiber coaxial blend that Verizon uses?
I'm not an expert at UVerse, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
And Verizon will be taking over that same UVerse network that Frontier took over. Is that correct?
Yes.
So do you anticipate there would be any issues with that technology transition, such as Frontier faced?
No, we're buying Frontier in totality, and we're buying all their systems.
But when integrating with Verizon's network, perhaps to provide Fios services over Frontier fiber, which is presumably partially UVerse?
But again, when we do we're in the process of doing the integration planning process. You know, my job is to make sure that customers are not impacted when we do the integration.
If I could maybe just add, the fiber services that we provide today, all of the fiber deployment that we've done, those aren't run through UVerse. So it's a fiber technology. It's the UVerse is just maintained for some video services and for some non-fiber based broadband service customers.
So at a high level, when Verizon Fios comes in to Frontier's service area, would it be like a plug and play for consumers that they would be able to receive Fios internet over Frontier fiber?
Yes, that's exactly what we plan to do.
So from a technology perspective, it's equal.
For when we look at the fiber network and we look at the pond structure that Frontier has, again, we're just scratching the surface of integration planning, but there are similarities with Verizon, and, we are capable to come in and look to ensure that we provide the same level of service that Frontier does today.
Thank you.
Ms. Ash, I'd just like to address if the authority has concerns based on other transactions that took place over the last decade or so where there were transition issues. What distinguishes this transaction is, in those cases, those were transfers of piece parts of a company's property and assets to another company, whereas this transaction, we're purchasing the entirety of Frontier. It's not picking apart individual parts. So we're taking what Frontier already has in total. It's a contrast to what those other transactions, like earlier sales of Verizon properties to Frontier, the Frontier purchase of AT&T, I forget the name, it's now consolidated in northern New England. So this transaction is not like those.
Thank you. My overarching concern is that Verizon has been very clear that it intends to build out the fiber network, and it sounds like in Frontier's territory as well. And if Verizon is building out Frontier fiber if Verizon is building out Verizon Fios fiber and then needs to interconnect to the existing Frontier fiber to continue that service, wouldn't that be a technology interconnection that would need to be handled?
I mean, I would say no. So first off, there's significant fiber deployment across the state of Connecticut. Very few locations in this state don't have fiber at this point in time. When you're talking about the actual physical fiber, I mean, it's just a transmission medium. There isn't intelligence associated with the actual fiber. It gets connected into an optical line terminal, other broadband electronics within the central office. Those are all being purchased by Verizon. So Verizon is going to have all of the equipment under their care and control that any new fiber gets connected into.
So new fiber is new fiber no matter who's laying it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Frontier, this next one's for you. Are there any potential issues you see that could become customer impacting upon network integration?
No. And I would say, again, this is because Verizon is purchasing the entire company and the entire network.
Verizon, same question to you. Are there any potential issues you see that could become customer impacting upon network integration?
No, not at this time. We haven't.
So to clarify, it's the position of both companies that there will be no network integration issues post-closing?
With the best of my ability, yes.
All right. I think that's the end of my section. Bert, I'm going to hand it over to you next.
Thank you, Rihanna. I'm going to talk a little bit about video. So I'm going to go back to 2014 when, at least according to the Pure's final decision approving Frontier's acquisition of SNET from AT&T, Frontier stated that it was, quote, committed to continue distributing, and I'll add the words, linear video services in Connecticut upon receipt of regulatory approval. But Frontier's commitment was abandoned around 2021 when it ceased offering its video service. And so we're asking the question about whether Verizon is ready to commit to offering linear wireline Fios TV products throughout Connecticut under Frontier's CVFA.
Can I just, slight objection, clarification for the record. I think it's been made pretty clear that there's no abandonment of any commitments, that Frontier stopped providing the video service to new customers going forward, but not existing customers.
But can you answer the question? Will you have Fios in Greenwich, Fios TV? Will Connecticut customers in SNET's service area, which is 98 or 99% of Connecticut, will at least some of those customers be able to access Fios TV service?
I can't make that commitment because it's an important part of the integration planning process to take a look at what Frontier's current offerings are, what their network facilities are like, what the central office facilities are like, so we couldn't make any kind of decision now on what offerings we'll make post-transaction without having the benefit of that review.
But I just thought during the questions that Ms. Ash asked about the transition, the integration, that with respect to fiber, it was essentially, I believe, the answer to her question that it was plug and play was yes. So why could you not offer Fios TV on, at the very least, Frontier's existing fiber network?
Well, and I'll take care of this, Paul, is that to provide video is that there's additional video equipment that you need to be placing, like Allison said, in the central offices. So we have to understand if that's there, but at this time, we're going to do a full integration planning process, and we're not ready to make that commitment.
Do you have any idea, Mr. Sullivan, what the cost would be for one central office to install the equipment so that Verizon Fios TV would be available to SNET consumers?
I don't.
Maybe if I could just add one point of clarification.
Please do.
So you did mention that you said we ceased offering linear video services. That's, as Attorney Jensen pointed out, not wholly true.
The new subs.
To new subscribers, we continue to support existing subscribers. From 2014 to that point, when that decision was made, consumers' viewing habits changed. And we, as a competitive provider of services, aligned with consumers' current interest in how they purchase and watch video services. Consumers watch over-the-top video services. They purchase Hulu, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus. I mean, there's a whole alphabet of them. So our decision in the video offering space was very much driven by consumers and consumer habits. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, are you aware, Ms. Ellis, that right now, fewer than 50% of the U.S. population, according to surveys that I've read, uses streaming services?
I'd have to know the source of that, but I would say our experience in Connecticut is consumers are purchasing their video services through over-the-top providers.
Do you have data for that, ma'am?
Yes, based on our consumer, the purchasing decisions of our consumers, yes.
But you haven't done any surveys that universally impact all of Connecticut's consumers. This is your opinion, and I will accept it as your opinion. I will not accept it as a fact. When I've read surveys that show that over 50% of the U.S. population has not adopted streaming, and as streaming becomes more and more expensive, consumers are also rethinking whether they should be paying for increasing prices of streaming services, multiple streaming services.
I'm not sure you can extrapolate survey responses from the entire United States to the state of Connecticut. I will just say that.
Well, I know we are special, and we expect to be treated specially by the companies that serve us, but thank you.
Perfect. So to clarify, it sounds like we don't have a plan on whether Verizon Fios linear TV will be offered in the Frontier service area, but will live TV be offered over streaming services in Frontier service area?
Streaming service is available to any customer who has a broadband internet connection. There's no restriction.
Ah, so they don't have to subscribe to a channel lineup in order to get TV services over?
If you have a fiber connection, you can purchase any services that ride on that fiber connection. You don't have to go through the broadband provider in order to purchase them. So for example, a customer can purchase fiber broadband from us and they can choose their phone from a different carrier. They can choose their video service from a different carrier, any host of fiber enabled services.
Okay. Yes. So cable companies typically offer their lineups over a streaming platform. I'm not sure if Verizon does that in the Greenwich service area.
It's just different.
Yeah,
Different
not for what you just described.
Okay. So there wouldn't be a Verizon offered live streamed TV channel lineup in Frontier service area.
We do offer, one of the benefits that we talked about was the bundling that we do with some streaming providers. So we facilitate some content providers offering of services over Verizon usage. But there's no other restrictions on customers within a Verizon fiber territory on use of streaming services, including where we offer our linear TV service. We have many customers who either have our linear video service and also subscribe to Netflix, or we have customers who may have dropped our linear service in order to subscribe to YouTube TV or Hulu or Fubo or any of the myriad number of streaming options that are out there.
Thank you. Can you tell me if any streaming partners that Verizon has offer local access over their streaming platforms?
I know that YouTube TV does and Hulu does. I'm trying to remember if they were partners of ours. I believe YouTube TV, there was some partnership with us or ability to purchase YouTube TV, but they certainly have local access.
Okay, so all the community access programmers.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant local channels, local broadcast channels. I'm not sure about community access providers.
Okay. Okay, that's something I would be interested in knowing, if any of the streaming partners offer what we would consider local access, community access providers content so that folks could stream their local channels.
That I'm not sure about. I just know that, like, since the pandemic, when I can watch a church mass in stream, so I'm not sure if those folks someone can just log into a public access to stream, go onto their website and stream.
All right. Along the same vein, so the first submission, I believe, from the Connecticut Alliance for Community Media mentioned that there had been a grant made available by Frontier to qualified community-based PEG programmers, PEG meaning Public Educational and Government, where 50% of funds were made available to boards of education and other education entities for education technology initiatives. And the maximum grant was $20,000 per applicant. Ms. Ellis, do you recall this grant being made available?
I don't remember specifically, to be honest with you.
Are you aware of any recurring grants Frontier might have made available for PEG or other one-time grants?
I don't believe we have any recurring grants.
Verizon, have you made any grant funding available for community access providers in your footprint
In Greenwich? No,
or elsewhere?
I don't know.
Is it something that you would consider?
Absolutely. I mean, as I testified last time, and I appreciate the opportunity to reiterate it with additional community access providers in the room. Verizon has been a cable provider for over 20 years, and we've had very good relationships with the community access community and providers, including in Greenwich. We are evaluating all of the information that's been submitted in Connecticut, and we appreciate the specific concerns that have been addressed, and we look forward to the opportunity after the transaction to have a very fulsome conversation with the providers to discuss all of the issues, whether they're technical or whether they involve grant opportunities.
Thank you. Over to you, Bert.
Okay, Ms. Ellis, I want to go back to the comments that Ms. Wedler made. One of the things, there were a number of things about that concern me as being an old cable TV lawyer. But one of the things that particularly stands out is the fact it sounded like that she was required to pay for your company's fiber construction on a public right-of-way. Did you understand her testimony to include that?
I understood what she said. I'm not familiar with that situation at all.
Would you agree that it's improper for a public access company, a nonprofit, to pay for the extension of fiber on a public right-of-way that you can sell to other companies or other businesses or residents that are on that public right-of-way?
Again, I'm not familiar with her situation at all, so I don't know what the facts are. I can't comment on it.
Okay, well, you listened to them and I listened to them, and so that was my understanding. I don't know what you didn't understand, but it will be in the record, and perhaps you would want to supplement a response to that based on the fact that the company had to pay for a number of the construction on the public right-of-way. I think that's, in the cable world, that is prohibited or was prohibited in any event without the prior approval of this agency. So you might want to look at that with your attorney afterwards. Do you have any other comments with respect to not just Ms. Wedler's testimony, but Ms. Ford's testimony and the testimony of Jennifer of West Hartford Community TV? Do you have any reaction to any of those?
I understand their concerns and, we remain open to discussing their concerns.
On the positive side, it looks like, based on Ms. Ford's submission, that they've done more than is reflected in your late filed exhibit, which basically said, call them. It sounds like there was some outreach on the part of your people, which I think is commendable, and I hope that continues. I'll move on. We're going back and forth, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Ash.
Okay, Verizon, there's a few network questions I have for you. It is our understanding from the last hearing that the fiber network can be monitored for outages in a way that the copper network cannot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain why then a fiber line customer would have to call to report an outage to get a restoral or an out of service credit if Verizon could detect the outage over fiber?
It gets into that visibility to kind of have visibility into the line, but we always want the customer to be able to call us and let us know across the board there. We know if there's if there is a fiber cut, we would know that there was a fiber cut and would be able to respond accordingly. But a lot of times if the customer is experiencing different types of issues, they could call us and let us know.
So in the example that you gave, if there's been a fiber cut, would Verizon presume that all consumers downline of that cut have no service?
It would depend
On what?
if how severe the cut was. I mean, what the damage was in that fiber cable, where it was in the fiber cable.
Okay. And in that situation, would Verizon automatically initiate a repair for all of those individuals to determine that they've all been put back in service?
Yes, when we go out to do a fiber repair, we would test it and make sure that we did it properly so that the customers would be up and running.
And would all of the consumers automatically receive an out of service credit if they were out for more than 24 hours in that situation?
That I don't know.
Mr. Basington, I see you turning pages. Do you want to take this one?
I was trying to remember if there were, I know that there was some discovery and late filed exhibits, but I don't know the exact number, and it would take me a while to flip through. If you know, it would be helpful.
I think you're talking about the tariff pages that concern out of service credit in the event of a power outage. That was my last line of questioning. This is more the network side where in some cases it is a tariffed thing for analog over fiber customers with fiber to the premises. But for Fios Digital Voice, as you know, that's not a tariffed product. So we're just looking to understand really why the impetus in that situation would be on the consumer to call to receive an out of service credit if Verizon is aware that the consumer is unable to use the service for a reason that, according to Verizon company policy, is something that they should receive a credit for.
Mr. Sullivan, correct me if I'm wrong, but while we can recognize that there was a cut somewhere, there's also redundancy in the network. So we might not know exactly which customers are affected by each individual issue that exists in the network.
Can you tell me a little bit about that redundancy?
Again, it depends. Where you are in the network. We definitely have redundancy to our central offices, and when you get out to the distribution, it would depend upon where that cut is.
So if we were looking at this um, sort of pictorially, you've got your central office, you've got the consumer's home. Does network redundancy plan for a call to be able to travel this way to the home and this way? So if there was a line that was cut on one side, the call could be rerouted through another part of the network?
Generally not in the distribution, what you were just describing, but from central office to central office, we do.
Ah, so if the cut was between central offices and outside of the last mile per se, that would be where the redundancy would come in. Is there redundancy in that last mile between the central office and the customer's home?
No.
I see. Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, Ms. Ellis, I'm going to go back to you. Can you tell us how much battery backup units generally cost consumers when they're made available for purchase?
So the battery backup unit is actually just a tray. Okay, and then in that tray goes, I believe they're D-cell batteries. And so those D-cell batteries can be purchased at Walmart or, Big Y. Obviously, at whatever cost that is. I think it takes 8 D-cell batteries. It's more than 2, but I don't think it's more than 10.
And does Frontier front the cost for the tray, or is that made available for purchase?
I'm not sure.
Get a read in on that, please.
So you're looking for the cost of the battery tray?
Yeah, it's called a battery backup unit. And can you tell us how often the battery backup unit needs to be replaced?
The unit itself, I don't think needs to be replaced. I've not heard of that being done. The batteries themselves, I mean, they need to be replaced when they are depleted. And I think that is really driven by how much use they're being used. I know customers frequently don't put any batteries in until the time of a power outage so that they're not wasting the battery capabilities.
Thank you. And can you tell us who is responsible for monitoring the battery's status and ensuring it is functional?
The consumers.
Does the company provide any alerts or notifications when the battery is low or needs replacement?
I believe that the unit itself contains an alert.
And I think this might be connected to the read-in we asked for, but does Frontier provide free or reduced price battery backup units or replacement batteries to any or all customers?
I don't have the answer to that. I can get it though.
May we add that to the initial reading?
And does Frontier offer any extended backup options to consumers in areas prone to power outages?
Beyond the backup battery unit, not that I'm aware of.
Does Frontier provide installation and maintenance services for consumers who may not be able to manage battery upkeep themselves?
Not that I'm aware of.
And does Frontier have any programs to assist low-income consumers and/or those who are elderly or have disabilities with the cost and maintenance of battery backup units?
Not that I'm aware of.
Verizon, these questions are coming next to you.
Okay.
Can you tell us what kinds of battery backup unit are made available to consumers?
We have some legacy that use a 12-volt battery, but the new ones that we offer are D-cell units, and they require 12 D-cell batteries.
Thank you. And can you tell us how much they typically cost for the battery backup unit itself?
It depends on the scenario. For customers who we are migrating, because we're doing a network transformation project, it's at no cost to the customers, both for the tray and for the first set of batteries.
And that's current company policy?
Yes.
What is the expected lifespan of a battery backup unit?
Depends on a number of factors. Depends on if it's been used, if it's been put to use. It also depends on the quality of the batteries, among other factors.
And who is responsible for monitoring the battery's status and ensuring it's functional?
The customer.
And does the company provide any alerts or notifications when the battery is low or needs replacement?
No.
Does Verizon provide free or reduced price battery backup units or replacement batteries to all customers?
No, other than the discussion that I just had about the customers who we've done a forced migration with, get their unit and their first set of batteries free.
And does Verizon offer any extended backup options to consumers in areas prone to power outages?
Extended, meaning extended beyond what comes with the battery backup units that I've been describing? No.
Does Verizon provide installation and maintenance services for consumers who may not be able to manage battery upkeep themselves?
We install the initial battery backup system if in the migration scenario, if we're providing it, or in other scenarios where the customer has requested it as part of the optical network terminal installation. Beyond that, inside fire maintenance planning.
Not sure if it is for them.
You don't believe that there are other programs?
Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about suspensions. So this is for Verizon. Ooh,
Sure.
Thank you.
Kevin, you want me to just share that? From Anne? She said she was texting with you too.
Yeah, I'm gonna call her right
Okay.
Let's turn it back on. So turn it back, yeah. Yeah, turn it on. Yep.
Off, on. Is it off, on, off, on?
I know. I mean, I can do.
Okay, next one.
I just wanted to let you know it was on.
Oh, there it is. I got it. I'm sorry.
Are we all set to continue?
All right, Verizon, I believe these next ones were for you about suspensions. Verizon, can you confirm what the automatic suspension policies are in place for Connecticut consumers whose accounts are past due?
Have the tariff provision that applies to past due accounts, but I don't know if that's lays out the terms and conditions of when it applies. Like how long it takes for non-payment before a suspension. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
timelines.
No,
of
I
it.
don't have the tariff in front of me other than the specific pages from the LFE that refer to the restoral.
Okay. I'm not sure if everything that I'm looking for is in the tariff. So maybe I'll ask some specific questions and we can get some read-ins or, okay. Are there a certain number of days an account must be past due to receive a suspension notice?
I don't know.
Can we get a read-in on that?
Yes.
Verizon, could you describe for us what Verizon considers to be a soft disconnection?
I can tell you, my understanding of a soft disconnection is where the dial tone is still available and a customer can continue to access emergency services.
And a hard disconnection, what would that then be?
My understanding is that would be a complete removal of the circuit connection.
Could you describe the steps between when a consumer's account becomes past due and a hard disconnection at the pole?
No, I don't know the specific steps.
Could we get a read-in for that? Yes. Can you describe the steps between a consumer's account becoming past due and a hard disconnection at the pole?
Just to clarify, we don't, when a customer service is disconnected, we don't go out to the pole to remove the wires.
A technician doesn't go out to disconnect at the pole?
No,
And if a consumer wanted to get new service and they would have to pay for a new installation, they wouldn't need a technician to come out to reconnect?
depends on the circumstances.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, if the customer has a situation where they need a technician to come out, then the technician would come out. I don't know the specific technical requirements, but sometimes it requires a tech visit, sometimes it doesn't. But as a matter of course, we don't go out to do a pole climbing at the service terminal to disconnect the copper pair at the service terminal.
If a consumer is disconnected for non-payment and a specific amount of time has lapsed, that would make them technically a new customer in Verizon's books, would that consumer be charged an installation fee?
You're talking about a customer who's been disconnected for non-payment and wants to restart their service, it's a
Yes.
restoral fee under the tariff.
It's a restoral fee. Is that under a specific time frame from the disconnection, or is that forever?
I don't know.
Can we get the citation for the restoral and the tariff?
It is section 6, page 7 and page 4. Page 7 is the description. Page 4 is the charge.
Thank you. Can you tell us how many suspension notices are sent to a consumer prior to a soft disconnection?
No.
Can we get a read-in for that?
Just to clarify about the read-ins. And I just also want to clarify what I'm up to for read-ins too, so we have that. But for the prior read-in, which I called read-in C, I'm not sure do you still need that information? Because you just had a discussion about that. I don't know if that answered your concerns about that read-in. And it's the steps between the consumer becoming past due and the hard disconnect at the pole. Is that still something you're looking for?
Yes.
So this latest read-in, which I have labeled as read-in D, would be the number of suspension notices prior to a soft disconnect.
My next question is, how many days are there between a soft disconnection and a hard disconnection?
I don't know. I don't know.
Can we get that answer added on too? Thank you. Verizon, Exhibit 28 referenced late payment charges. Can you confirm whether late payment charges apply to an account if the consumer has entered into a deferred payment arrangement?
Exhibit to what? Exhibit 28 to what?
It was labeled Exhibit 28.
By us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just able to reference document, curiosity document.
Okay, we can use that interchangeably with the tariff then. Can you confirm whether late payment charges apply to an account if the consumer has entered into a deferred payment arrangement with Verizon?
I don't know.
Can we get that as a read-in too? Ms. Ellis, these next questions are for Frontier. Ms. Ellis, can you confirm what the automatic suspension policies are in place for Connecticut consumers whose accounts are past due?
I don't have that information.
Could you answer any of the questions that I asked to Verizon? Or should I read through them again for read-ins for Frontier?
I think they'll need to be read-ins. I don't have specific information. I know generally what the policy is, but I don't have specific
And
information.
just Ash, if you give us a moment, I think we may have hit some of these in LFE filings already. We just need a minute to check
Sure.
or in the initial discovery. So we're kind of pulling out items to see if we can.
Thank you.
Just clarification, Ms. Ash, is it your understanding that these questions are separate from the questions that were asked in the late filed exhibits and the OCC interrogatories?
I believe so.
Ms. Ash, could you repeat the question? Sorry, we went through the original OCC 1 to 92. That was not addressed.
Sure. Luckily, I have these all written down. The first question was, please confirm, what are the automatic suspension policies in place for Connecticut consumers whose accounts are past due?
Just to restate, if past due, what is the number of days and before suspension?
Right. What happens to that account? Yep. I'd also like to add in where can those policies be found for a consumer? When you're ready for the next one. The next question was, can you describe the steps between a consumer's account becoming past due and a hard disconnection at the pole, or a hard disconnection where the consumer can no longer have service restored remotely? I believe the next question that wasn't answered was, how long after a hard disconnection or account termination would a consumer have to pay an installation fee to become reconnected versus a restoral fee? The next question was, how many suspension notices are sent to a consumer prior to a soft disconnection? The next one was, how many days are there between a soft disconnection and a hard disconnection? And lastly, with regard to late payment charges, can you confirm whether late payment charges apply to an account if the customer has entered into a deferred payment arrangement with Verizon or Frontier? This set of questions is issued in duplicate to both companies.
I just want to remind the attorney panel, with our microphone issues, it's hard to pick up the audio. So when you're speaking, if you can, I know this is going to be annoying, but if you can lean into the microphone
Will do.
so it could get picked up. I'd appreciate that.
Will do. Thank you.
Verizon, this next question's for you. Verizon, can a consumer subscribe to Fios Digital Voice as a standalone service?
No,
What other services must a consumer purchase in order to get digital telephone service with Verizon then?
either Fios Internet or Fios Video.
Can you tell us why Verizon has elected not to offer Fios Digital Voice service as a standalone product?
I don't know.
Verizon, can you tell us if a consumer is informed at point of sale that they can purchase their own compatible modem and or router versus paying a rental fee to Verizon?
I don't know the specifics of the terms and conditions that are provided at the point of sale.
Do you know if consumers are informed of this at any time or on a regular basis?
No, I don't know.
That's something we would be interested in knowing. The rental fee, I believe, is in excess of $15 a month.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Could we get that as a read-in, perhaps?
Could you restate the question that
Yeah.
you would like to have as a read-in?
Yep. Is a consumer informed at point of sale that they can purchase their own compatible modem and or router versus paying a rental fee? Mhm.
Yep.
Yep. And the follow-up was, are they reminded of this ever or on a regular basis? Shifting gears a little bit, one of the interrogatories referenced the FCC's Telecommunications Service Priority Program. And we're wondering if Verizon publicizes the ability of federal, state, local, tribal police departments, fire departments, PSAPs, public safety access points, or 911 call centers, and there are more, to sign up for that telecommunications service priority program.
No, I don't know.
I don't believe it's in the record. Can we find out as a read-in if Verizon publicizes the TSP program so that the applicable parties can sign up for priority for restoral in the event of a outage? Shifting gears again, and I apologize, we've reached the miscellaneous portion of questioning. Does Verizon currently have a consumer complaint referral and resolution relationship with any community organizations in Connecticut other than EOE through PURA?
Repeat the description again. Sorry, I didn't follow all of the words.
That's okay. Does Verizon currently have a consumer complaint referral and resolution relationship with any entities in Connecticut other than PURA's EOE? Does Verizon take consumer complaints from any other third parties?
I believe we take consumer complaints from anybody, including from the Attorney General's office, from the regulatory agencies, and also direct from consumers. We also interface with the legislature, and oftentimes complaints come through legislative means.
And does the same group at Verizon respond to all of those state referrals?
I don't believe so. And we have regulatory interfaces that work on some complaints. So some come through the policy arena. We also have an executive appeals organization that handles some complaints.
And how are complaints from these entities prioritized by Verizon?
What do you mean by prioritized?
Are there any entities that the complaints that come from those entities are responded to faster than complaints that come from other entities?
I mean, other than the priority list that you went over earlier that we responded about outages, I don't think there's any kind of prioritization that says one set of customers is more important than others, other than the judgment of the reps that if there's a specific circumstance that affects health and safety of the customer, they might make a judgment, a reasonable judgment, that they should put a higher priority on that customer complaint versus, say, a billing complaint that comes in.
Okay, thank you. How many Verizon personnel are currently designated to respond to consumer complaints submitted by Pura's EOE?
I don't know the exact number.
Can we find that out? Does Verizon anticipate that personnel will be added when and if the merger goes through and there are many more consumer complaints than are probably coming just from Greenwich right now?
That's certainly going to be part of the integration planning and also post-closing evaluation that we need to do. We're taking on ILEC responsibilities in many more states than we currently have, so we'll need to be reviewing all of that, all of those considerations.
And Ms. Ellis, how many Frontier personnel are currently assigned to work with EOE and take their complaints?
I don't know that we have a specific number assigned. We maintain a customer care organization, including in escalation group, and they work on complaints or issues that come through all states.
Thank you. Verizon, do you expect that the complaint policies, the complaint referral and resolution policies that Frontier currently has in place with EOE will change to mirror Verizon's policies moving forward in terms of timelines for responsiveness?
Yeah, that's another subject that will be part of the integration planning.
Thank you. The next few questions I have are about Verizon Innovative Learning Education Technology. This is something that was brought up, I believe, in Verizon's pre-filed testimony. I'm curious about it. So can you tell us, is there any cost to participants to get subscriptions to Verizon Innovative Learning or use the system?
I don't believe so, but I'd like to confirm.
Do you need a minute?
We get that. Confirmation of costs is a read-in. Confirmation of costs is a read-in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. My next question is, how do partners get access to the programs? How does Verizon create these partnerships so that folks have the ability to use the system?
There are a number of ways. We have a Citizen Verizon webpage that we discuss some of our programs, including digital inclusion programs that these would fall under. We also have a robust community engagement group within Verizon, and we also have a foundation, Verizon Foundation. So we have a number of different organizations within Verizon that interface with specific groups for our inclusion, our digital inclusion programs.
Does Verizon actively seek out participant partners, or are they expected to come to Verizon for access?
We actively seek it out in addition to responding to inquiries.
And can non-partners access the programs?
Depends on the programs. I mean, some of them are just web material that we have available that we've described in our testimony and other places, that we have resources that people can access. And I think those are just generally available.
And does Verizon track any learning outcomes?
I don't know.
That's a big one. Can we find out?
Well, you're asking if we track individual schools that we partner with, what their statistics are for what outcomes? Like, are they reading better, or are they doing math?
Yes.
What is it you're asking?
I'm asking, how do Verizon innovative learning programs bring value to Connecticut? What outcomes are available that are measurable to show that folks are better for having used these programs?
Maybe it would help, Mr. Vasington, just before we get into this, if I think you're probably familiar with the innovative learning. Can you just, for the record, can you tell those of us who aren't aware of what the program is, what it does, and that might help get a better understanding of what is offered here, since it's in your testimony, sir?
Bear with me for a moment. Okay, so the Verizon Innovative Learning Initiative, we have a goal of reaching 10 million youth for digital skills training. So it's digital skills training. And we describe it as new and engaging learning experiences by providing technology, integrated curriculum, extensive support for educators and administrators, emerging technologies, and free internet access. Additionally, Verizon has expanded access to its education programs to all educators nationwide through free access to immersive applications for any device and tech-focused learning resources on an online portal, Verizon Innovative Learning HQ.
Thank you for the explanation. So going back to my original question was, does Verizon track outcomes, learning outcomes for those who use this program?
I don't know.
Okay, can we find that out?
I'm not sure if we can. I mean, we can certainly find out if the answer is no. It might surprise me a bit to find that we try to look into what the schools are doing and how that's affecting their students. There's a lot of factors that affect educational outcomes. I believe that our programs improve at the margin, the opportunities that are available, whether that comes into measured scores or things that you could quantify with these schools. I don't know. I'll be surprised if we do follow up like that, but we can try to find out.
Thank you. I'm familiar with other educational technology systems that the state pays for the use of. And part of that is outcomes being tracked to show that the programs have efficacy and value. And what I'm trying to ensure here is this program is being made available free of charge, which is great. But what would make a Connecticut educator use Verizon Innovative Learning over one of the systems that they pay for, that they get outcomes for? So any information you can give me on that would be appreciated.
have no objection to that being run supplement. So. Now would be
We're going to do our best to get all of this today, but we appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. And then my last question is Verizon aware of any state official websites that link to Verizon Innovative Learning so as to endorse it?
I don't know. I know that there was a discussion of a lot of state programs in the digital equity plan, which I did read subsequent to the last hearing. I don't remember if there was any specific references in that document or in other state descriptions of their programs, whether they included our program or not.
Mhm. And lastly, can you tell me if Verizon Innovative Learning generates any tax benefits for Verizon?
Oh, I don't know.
I would be interested in learning that.
And what's
field
the
of the relevance here? I know we've been indulgent on these, but that, I mean, whether we're getting tax benefits.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll draw back.
Okay, thank you.
Switching over to Lifeline for a few minutes. I know we discussed Lifeline at length in the last hearing, but there's a few questions that remain. And the first is well, actually, I think you answered this one. A Fios digital voice customer could not get standalone Lifeline service because they couldn't get standalone service for digital voice. They would have to have internet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Um,
Just one possible amendment. There might be Fios digital voice customers from an earlier time period. I believe that our policy may have changed, so I don't know if there was any earlier Lifeline customers on that.
Thank you. I think that answers my next question, which was, can the Lifeline voice subsidy be provided over digital phone service? So for legacy consumers, yes?
I believe it is available for legacy, but well, so if a customer is a bundled customer who has both broadband and voice from Verizon, they can be a Lifeline customer. I don't know if that Lifeline discount is different because it's both internet and voice. But we certainly have a lot of Lifeline customers on our fiber network, getting our fiber services.
Thank you. Bert, I think I'm going to put this over to you for these last ones.
Now we're on. Welcome. We asked both companies a number of questions about data privacy and cybersecurity. The Attorney General's office was going to do some cross on those, on your responses. And since Assistant Attorney General Wright is out ill, I'm going to try to fill in here. First of all, to Mr. Vasington or Mr. Sullivan, there was an announcement, I believe, a day or two ago about Verizon entering into a venture, a business venture with Accenture to provide comprehensive cybersecurity solutions. Have you seen a release on that or have any general understanding so you can explain that to us?
I'm sorry, I don't. I've been busy preparing for the hearing and not looking at our press releases very closely.
I haven't seen it either.
You haven't seen it? Okay, so perhaps you can tell us just generally what Verizon is doing to prevent cyber issues in its networks. Let me pull up my questions here to be more specific for you. We have there's something called Salt Typhoon. It was a cyber hack that reportedly was occurred in 2024 of major telecom networks, including those owned by Verizon. The reports were that it was Chinese hackers, whether they were government sponsored or not. I'm not informed enough to know that, but that they occupied Verizon's network for some period of time. Can you tell us whether the Salt Typhoon hackers currently occupy Verizon's network?
Verizon has made a public statement that Verizon has contained the cyber incident brought on by this threat actor, and an independent and highly respected cybersecurity firm has confirmed the Verizon containment.
Thank you. That's good news.
It is.
Can I ask whether Verizon informed any consumers whose information may have been breached as a result of the Salt Typhoon hack? It's Salt Typhoon. Salt isn't salt. Typhoon isn't typhoon. So just to make sure we got that clear.
Yes. The individuals whose information was accessed have been notified about the activity.
Okay, all consumers, because I've read different things, Mr. Vasington. And I don't want to put you in a bad position.
I've our statement because I'm not going to go farther than what we've said.
Okay.
This nation-state threat actor targeted a small number of individuals primarily involved in government or political activity. Those individuals have been notified about the threat actor's activity. The nation-state threat actor also accessed information related to a small percentage of mobile internet access and mobile call records of other Verizon Wireless customers. For these customers, the threat actor did not access the content of their communications.
Okay, thank you. Again, we hope that that there won't be any repeat on that. What generally, I assume that Verizon, like most communication, wireline and wireless communications companies, take cybersecurity very, very careful. It's very important. Can you elaborate a little bit for the record on Verizon's policies for cybersecurity? Obviously not going into anything confidential, but on a general nature, so we can have that in the record?
Yeah, we did spell this out in quite some detail in response to some of your discovery, but rather than reading all that over, I will just say that we have dedicated teams with expertise in everything from performing cybersecurity due diligence with regard to the cybersecurity landscape within target entities pre-acquisition to planning for and executing on cybersecurity best practice programs post-acquisition. We believe we're best in class in the industry in our cybersecurity programs. We take it very seriously. We have devoted a significant amount of resources both prior to the Salt Typhoon incident, but certainly even after that to ensure that our networks and our customers are well protected. Nobody is better at this than we are.
Thank you. We certainly hope that's true if the transaction is approved. A little bit about data privacy, and again, I'll just stick with Verizon here. Data privacy obviously is very important to consumers. Does Verizon require new customers to provide Social Security numbers prior to obtaining service? And if so, why would you need that?
I, b- I believe we do for some customer services. I don't think we do for prepaid wireless services, and I don't know the exact purpose of that. Could be credit checks. And I don't know if it's in all cases.
Well, the reason I ask is because for data privacy, the Social Security number of consumers is that's the gold mine for people who would in any way hack or get access to the network. So I guess what I'm asking is what measures does the company take to protect personally identifiable information, particularly Social Security numbers?
Yeah, we've described in detail in response to some of your discovery requests, the specific steps that we take. We take it very seriously. We have a robust privacy policy. We have a chief privacy officer who reports regularly to the board of directors and our senior executives. So, and we also very clearly comply with all relevant federal and state privacy laws, including the very robust state law that is here in Connecticut. And that's pre-existing to the transaction because we operate in Connecticut even before this consideration of this deal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the conversation that we're having on this, Mr. Vasington. One of the questions, I think it might have been related to OCC 190. Who within the Verizon organization will be directly responsible for compliance with Connecticut privacy laws and data breach notification requirements?
Well, certainly our chief privacy officer oversees all of our policy development and compliance requirements with that. And that's Sue Vinci, VINCI, is our chief privacy officer and has overall oversight and control of our policies and compliance.
So does Verizon, for instance, in Massachusetts, do you have somebody, or Rhode Island, do you have somebody who reports directly to Ms. Vinci? Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we have a specific person in each state who just works on that one state. We have a very robust team of privacy professionals who are in that organization who have knowledge about all of the relevant state requirements. And we have a very well-developed training program that some of it is required of all employees. We all have to go through privacy education on a regular basis. And then there's more training for customer facing and customer contacting personnel at Verizon, and including specific training related to state laws.
Okay, thank you. OCC 195 has a decent outline of the cybersecurity call program. Other than the authority has been when I say the authority, I mean the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, has been historically very interested in ensuring that all of the companies that fall within the oversight, whether it's rate regulation or general oversight of the communications companies here, do engage in good cyber hygiene. Does Verizon have any objection to cooperating with the authority should it be asked any questions? Obviously, understanding that certain things are proprietary and confidential.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add that, that there's certain information that could be proprietary or confidential, but other than that, we would look forward to answering any questions that you or the authority has about our practices.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ellis, just the same question about Social Security numbers. Does Frontier currently require Social Security numbers for new customers, for instance?
So for new customers, we do have a process where we verify their identity. It's part of our approach to complying with the FTC's red flag rules, which are programmed to identify and protect against identity theft. For consumers who do not want to provide their Social Security number, we do have other protocols for establishing the positive identification.
Can you state for the record what some of those other ways of verification might occur?
They vary, but sometimes people will provide us a copy of their driver's license, for example. There's a whole tier of ways that consumers can provide us verification of their identity.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall? I don't have the document directly in front of me, but do you recall? I believe it was in the fall of 2024. There was a 911 disruption. 911 service disruption that Frontier experienced. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what caused that and what steps, Frontier experienced? I'm already getting you confused. Do you have any information on
I
that?
don't have specific information about that event.
Okay. Obviously, both companies understand that 911 interruptions are very serious. And
I can tell you when a 911 issue occurs, we work very closely with our public safety answering point partners, with state officials, with other providers to restore service as quickly as possible.
yeah, I mean, and it's of interest to Ms. Ash and me in particular because a lot of calls from legislators and consumers came to us in addition to EOE, Pura. So it's something that's very important, and I thought I wanted to just state that for the record. I have no further questions on this line.
My questions are satisfied, Bert. Okay. That's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to, do you know how much time you would need for the read-ins? Or do you want to wait?
I think 15 minutes.
So here's what we'll do. We'll try to get everything we can in 15 minutes, and then we will file a supplement to our discovery, make it OCC 2312. And we could, yeah. Yeah, oh, sorry, yeah. So we'll get everything we can in the next 15 or 20 minutes. Try to give you the read-ins on those. And then if we can't get any of them, because there's a lot of them, we'll try to file a supplement as soon as possible.
Okay, so we'll take a 20-minute break.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
Okay. And Attorney Cohen, I just want to confirm that you've read the questions, the cross for the Attorney General's office, correct? For the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I shortened.
No problem. So I just want to confirm that. Sure. I'm just confirming that Cross says we're finished with Cross and we're going to take a 20-minute break to, for you to, compile all the read-ins and then, we'll conclude after that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have my, well, I have my computer, I can do that. I just gotta. Gotten it yet, because I'm still trying to get my Wi-Fi hotspot. I mean, it's gonna take a bit, because I'm not connected, Kevin, so do you want to just show me your email? And also, that password does not work, and now my computer is totally unusable. Pissed off. Okay, yeah, so $39.99.
Well, but here's the back, here's the explanation. So we automatically. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I get two.
So there's no charge for.
Yeah. Copper to fiber.
We provide the unit and the batteries.
Okay, wait. Okay,
For other customers, we'll provide it if they request it for free. That's my.
I mean, do we say that? I mean, what we should say is for low income customers, we don't charge it.
Any
we charge it
customers
for
any customer who has existing service and doesn't want it or wants it, you can order it.
Well, okay, that's the question I would have is whether we charge it for low income people. I mean, we.
Even Verizon. What do you mean low income?
It was on like life. Hey. When we had the ACP program, did we charge for that for battery?
Telling me
That's what I said for it too. I'm like, hey. They never turned up.
We all set to continue? Okay.
All right, Verizon's going to do its best to do as many read-ins as possible here, and we will supplement the record with the ones we were not able to.
Okay.
I believe the first question, first read-in for Verizon was, can you describe Verizon's automatic suspension policies? And I'll direct that one at Mr. Vasington.
Okay, so here's the steps that are taken. For non-payment, a bill is late 25 days after the pay-by date. The first notice to customers goes out at 26 days. Suspension notice goes out at 37 days. And the final termination is at 87 days after the pay-by date.
Mr. Vasington, are these policies described to consumers?
Yes, they are, and there's a very extensive, frequently asked questions on these issues on our website.
I do not believe we have answers yet to the steps between, this process and a hard disconnect, or how long after a hard disconnect the customer would have to pay a discount fee versus a restoral fee. And I don't think we also have the days between a soft disconnect and a hard disconnect, or whether we can confirm whether late payment charges apply in deferred payment arrangements. So we will take those to supplement the record. Moving on to the question about modems, Mr. Vasington, the question was asked about whether customers are informed at the point of sale that they can purchase their modem separately. Can you describe Verizon's current policies with respect to modems?
Yes, our current policy is that the cost of the modem is included in the monthly fee. There is no separate cost for rental for the modem, for the modem router.
So that would moot the second question about whether customers are reminded on a regular basis.
That's correct.
Okay. The next question was, does Verizon publicize the TSP program?
Yes, we have an extensive description of that program on our website, and it's also our experience that it is well known within the public safety community, and that is discussed at every public safety conference and gathering that we're aware of.
The next question was about, specifically asked about EOE here, but I think more generally, what are our policies related to how we respond to complaints? How many people are dedicated to responding to Connecticut-specific complaints?
So we have 3 dedicated personnel in our policy organization to work on our ILEC states and respond to these complaints across all of our ILEC states. And then behind that, there are hundreds of people working on resolutions and appeals of customer complaints.
Thank you. We were asked about the cost of Verizon Innovative Learning for schools. Can you confirm that there's no cost to the schools?
Yes, there's no charge for participation in Verizon Innovative Learning.
Great. Mr. Vasington, we had an opportunity to educate ourselves collectively during the break about the Verizon Innovative Learning Program and statistics related to it. Is it your understanding that we do take metrics and benchmarks related to the Verizon Innovative Learning?
That's what I have learned, yes.
I'm going to read a few of those statistics into the record, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to confirm whether this is your understanding. Is it your understanding that 82% of teachers said that VILs helped them to explore new ways of teaching?
That's correct.
Is it your further understanding that 78% of teachers said that VILs enhanced their ability to differentiate instruction?
Yes.
Is it also your understanding that 77% of teachers said VILs enhanced student engagement?
That's correct.
And is your understanding that 70% of teachers said VILs helped them reach goals they set for their teaching?
Yes.
And finally, is your understanding that 66% of teachers believe VILs enhanced positive interactions between students?
Yes.
I believe that's the end of our list.
Frontier also has read-ins for the few that it has as well, and Ms. Ellis will do that.
Yes, sure. So with respect to battery backup, we do assess a charge of $39.99 for the battery backup unit. I did want to correct earlier, I said it took about 10 D-cell batteries. It actually takes 12. When we are transitioning a customer on a company-directed basis from copper to fiber, we provide the battery backup unit at no charge and the first set of 12 batteries. In terms of our suspension policies, so customers receive a notice that their bill is due. The bill is due 24 days after that initial notice. The account does not go into suspend state until 16 days after the due date. 16 days after the due date. We do provide a customer a reminder notice that their bill is past due 24 days after the due date. The customer's service is hard disconnected 36 days after the date that the services were initially suspended for non-pay. In terms of restoral, we can essentially restore the service remotely very quickly, usually in a matter of minutes, but it can take up to 24 hours. There was a question as to whether or not there were late payment charges applied to customers who were in a deferred payment status. The answer to that is no. We do not assess late charges on a deferred amount.
Thank you. Hearing Officer Fryer, I believe we're finished with the read-ins.
Okay. Are there any final administrative matters or any other matters that need to be taken up this time? Okay. I want to thank the witnesses for appearing today and answering the questions. To briefly summarize, there's going to be some supplemental information filed on the record with respect to disconnect issues. I will also have some motion rulings issued. So those should be out shortly, and I believe there's going to be a filing from Verizon?
From Verizon?
Yes.
Correct. Motion for reconsideration.
Yes. So then as it stands, briefs are due on March 21st. The date of issuance of the proposed final decision is May 12th. Written exceptions are due May 21st, and the date of the final decision to be issued at the regular meeting on June 11th. And I want to thank everyone for their participation this morning and this afternoon. And so we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.